I just had Dr. Grace Firestone on the Octononverba podcast, and you can't miss it. She's incredible. She is the physical embodiment of grace under fire, which makes her name very appropriate. She's an MD, she's an athlete, and she's overcome adversity. Don't miss this episode.
Marcus Aurelius Anderson suffered a devastating spinal injury while serving in the military. He was paralyzed from the neck down, and he was told he would never walk again. But Marcus turned adversity into purpose. Over the many years of recovery, he developed the life principles that would inspire his best-selling book, The Gift of Adversity, his powerful TEDx talk, and he became a highly sought-after leadership coach, an international keynote speaker. Because in the end, character isn't built by what we say. It's built by what we do. This is Acta Non Verba.
Welcome to the show, Doctor. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing excellent, and I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and you're doing incredible work as a doctor. You're a competitor, preparing to compete for not physique, but bodybuilding, which is another level of training that we'll talk a little bit more about. But you have an incredible origin story, which is actually Stephen Scott's the one that introduced us, because he works out at Gold's in the morning as well. So there's like this little conglomerate of like high achievers that are there that early. So tell me the kind of people that are there that early in the morning at Gold's.
Just taking a step back, I feel Gold's has changed my life. Been there a bit over a year now, and I used to be more with the evening crowd, but I was thinking to myself and figuring out how I could be, one, more efficient as a human being, and perhaps increase the intensity of my training. And so that led me to switching to 6 a.m. trainings for about an hour before then transitioning to starting to see patients at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And I've loved it. It really brings energy to your day, and I will tell you, it's a great environment in there. The people are committed. The people there are there almost every day and have been there for decades.
Yes.
So you get to know everyone. And it's from the person that clearly might have some joint injuries or other chronic conditions next to you on your right versus I competed and won classic physique, whatever competition last week, So what an amazing place to have, and both of those be inspirations at the same time. I'm very grateful.
I think, at least for me, if I can get in the morning, I feel like I've already won. And if I have to wait until the end of the day to go work out, usually my energy level is down, my weight's not as high, my intensity is lower, and I almost think to myself, I probably should have just waited till tomorrow or got in earlier and got something else done. So the efficiency is key.
I think it also sets you up for, I think about being on leg press, having 6 to 7, 7.25, I believe was the max, plates on each side.
Yeah.
We are fighting through that.
Yes.
It hurts.
Yes.
And so if that is being done at 6:30 a.m., I know walking in a clinic, I have my patients, I prepped my charts the day before, but still you don't know exactly what things will come up and what traumas someone may have that might have not been the chief complaint per se. So it's like, okay, I feel prepared to take on whatever the day may bring.
Yeah, because that's going to be the hardest thing you do most of the days, that peak workout. So, well, at least physically, mentally, emotionally, there's a lot more there too. So, especially being in practice. And so, when I spoke to you before, you've always been very driven from a young age up until now. Is that innate? Is that learned? What is that? Where did that come from?
I think it stems from gratitude and being the recipient of help from a young age. And, my mom prioritized education for us. And for that to happen, we had to be on, a lot of financial aid and whatnot. And in going from grade school up, and I felt like to be worthy of the spot here, I need to do everything that I can to be excellent and also then give back. So, for example, in high school, started a nonprofit called Let the Kids Play to get used sports equipment or other supplies that we could give to other schools in the area. Just understanding there's some places and environments where there's excess, perhaps,
Right.
and how can we delegate that? So I think it's, again, just going back to your question, a drive to pay it forward. And that ties into my larger health story. But even before then, that's probably where it started.
Yeah, because your grades being in these positions where you're hitting these high levels of excellence, it just seems like that's what I always see as the constant when I was talking to you. But then, as we were speaking before, I've never met somebody that's had a high level of excellence that has not gone through adversity. And usually the people that are doing it gracefully, like you are, they've taken that adversity and channeled it into a catalyst in some capacity. Can you tell us about that adversity for you at that young age, and give us what that feels like?
To share my story.
Please.
So, again, in high school, I didn't leave many stones unturned of what perhaps could have been done. I was playing 3 sports. I was captaining volleyball, basketball, soccer team. I was acting as class president, which is an elected position, very proud to be in that. And then I'd spoken at our high school graduation. And then 2 days later, a lot of my friends had gone to the beach to celebrate, but I had planned in my mind to walk on to college soccer. I didn't know exactly where I was going to school at that point yet. So I went to the local YMCA, had a great training session, came home. Some of these things in retrospect, I'm learning I had some strawberries for snack, and then wrote some emails. And fortunately, something compelled me around 11:30 at night to go up to my mom's room and say, I don't feel so well. And I collapsed on her bed and woke her up. She was completely thrown off guard because I hadn't had a health issue in my life. And so she immediately called 911. Then she called my older brother, who was out of college and almost never home. He happened to be upstairs. He, by the sound of her voice, bounded down the stairs, thinking something may be going on with her. He saw me lying on the floor. He noticed I wasn't breathing, and he started the CPR that he learned in grade school. Fortunately, again, we lived in an area with police, paramedics, so everyone lined my street, is what my mom said. They all rushed in, they took over CPR. I was shocked multiple times with an AED throughout the night. They did what's called intraosseous infusion. So when veins are shutting down and they can't get access, they go through the shin. And then I was rushed to the hospital for, I mentioned this before, but they couldn't get me back. And so between 45 minutes and an hour, they were working on me, CPR, rounds of medications, AED shocks, and they were able to then put me in a medically induced coma. They used something called therapeutic hypothermia, which you basically put the body on ice to get the blood flow away from the skin and more to the heart and the brain to preserve brain function. And so I was in a medically induced coma for about 3 days, and then woke up to my soccer coach at my bedside. not knowing what the outcome would be from there.
I can't even imagine. And this, you said, was monoxic cognitive dysfunction.
Well, when the heart stops, it's not pumping blood and oxygen to the rest of the body, and that includes the brain.
Correct.
And so it was long enough that at least the MRI of my brain had showed some anoxic brain injury, and that is quite worrisome when, you know, at 18 we didn't know waking up what my cognitive function would be,
Right.
and that would, as it did, take a bit to find out what I would be able to recover. Similarly, my ejection fraction, a measure of the heart function, was 35%, which is compromised. And so that also took time to see if it would recover and I'd be able to exercise again
Right.
safely.
Do you remember anything from the coma?
You know, I spent 10 days in the medical ICU, perhaps step down near the end, and my mom told me that the hospital room was like the most, at least the nurses said, the most decorated they had seen. I had banners. You know, I had been at my school from first to 12th grade.
Right.
We had a family, you know, and so all the communities rallied and were there to support. And I know that hundreds of people were in and out. And I'm really glad you asked me that, because what I remember is my nurse. My nurse, who I found out after the fact rearranged her schedule so that she could be a source of consistency for me. So she would make sure that she could come every day to check on me and watch my progress. And at day 10, I remember a medical team at the end of my bed saying, and I'm not sure I was really interacting with them at all. I looked where it appeared I hadn't made too much progress, of saying, I think she needs some more time. Right. And then Janet said something to make me laugh. And they gave it a few minutes, and they're like, okay, maybe she's closer than we think. Yeah. So I take that now with me of the importance as a primary care doctor, seeing my continuity patients. These are the nuances that we can pick up and also try to encourage expression from our patients to figure out what's truly going on with them.
Yeah, we were talking before about how if you give somebody a diagnosis,
right,
they will latch onto that, and that becomes their identity. And so had they misdiagnosed that, it may have affected things, right?
Right. And I still fully don't know what happened, what the cause was. I do know I had sudden cardiac arrest, sure. But in terms of the etiology of why, it could have been a perfect storm of things that my heart did not like. And so what happened is the rhythm gets so high that it just quivers and eventually stops. And I know that I had some follow-ups. I think, though, at some time it tapered off. And in terms of the restrictions or what I should be doing or not doing was almost unclear, and I felt like would be indefinitely unclear because, again, we're not sure what happened.
Right.
So I kind of, as an 18, then 19, then 20, continued to reassess myself. And that's what I really encourage people to do now, too. Yes. Not only maybe reevaluate the initial diagnosis, I always say, like, get a second opinion. And if the doctor should be fine with that. We're just getting more information.
Yes.
But also in terms of, again, what you can do or not do or should be doing or not be should not be doing, let's make sure we're not just, as you said, internalizing something that was once said to us and living with that for decades.
Yeah, because that singular decision can turn into your life. And so for you, you were constantly challenging that. But before you had the courage to do that, there had to be fear, there had to be sadness, there had to be this place. Tell us about that lowest place for you.
Tough question. You're getting right to it.
Sorry.
But I've also read your background, and I have a lot of respect for and identify to some degree in a different realm what that looked like for you. I went through 3 months of cognitive therapy after the hospital. Again, just graduated high school, planning to go to college. Now I'm sitting in front of a woman telling me to repeat a story she just read to me, or my homework was to make a schedule for a theoretical student, or do a maze. And it sounds silly, but it was hard. And that was scary. So I had told you before that I can picture when I was with my mom at one of the first appointments, and it was one of those memory tests, and of repeating the sentence that was only a few seconds, perhaps, read to me. And I think some of the lack of abilities to do so was in part fear, but also of true deficit. Between a combination of the two led me to not be able to do it. And it set in that, really, what will I be able to achieve going forward? So I continued to do my therapy. At 3 months, like the end of the summer, I was getting late to new student orientation at that point. Almost in tandem with that date was a neuropsych doctor saying, it looks okay, your results. I wouldn't necessarily recommend starting college. Here you go. And I said to myself, what else are you going to do? Sit at home? And how are you going to get better that way? So I decided to go and start as a biology student. I didn't know if I was going to fail every class, but I didn't feel there was an option. And I think that's what we're getting at, like, where's the darkest place? I needed to move forward, or else I would be digging a hole that would be difficult to live in. And also with athletics, given that it's been a part of me since youth. My cardiac physical therapy was walking 25 minutes on an inclined treadmill hooked up with wires all around me in a cardiac rehab center, of course, where no one looks like me. I'll just say it like that. I remember taking a picture to have as a memory. And so once I got to college, I started kicking around the soccer ball by myself. And jogging a little bit. And then going on to sign a paper so I could play with the club soccer team and try out. I again think that stopping was not a viable option. And so that was my response.
I think that's a powerful identity. This identity of taking action, of being an athlete. Again, the darkness can consume us if we allow it. And I would say that you weren't running from it. I would say you were running towards what you wanted, and that's different. I also think that you having that drive, as you said, I mean, you're a doctor now. You know, that if you listen to them and say, well, I'm going to be an MD, they're like, whatever, you know, do a junior college underwater basket weaving course and see how you feel. But until we like push into that adversity, we don't really know how far it's there. And there are times when we hit it and then we have to step back and reevaluate like you did. And then there's times when we say, well, what if I redouble my efforts? What if I push harder? Because you understood if you push hard enough and then your body revolts against you, okay, that's where the line is. But it seemed like you were still able to always expand what that was. This gradual from the incremental to this monumental person that I'm speaking to today.
It wasn't an overnight process.
It doesn't just happen overnight?
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
Also, my first semester on the club soccer team, we had an away game, and because it's club, you know, we drive ourselves, and on the way home there was traffic, and eventually someone's phone rang and they said, the traffic is from us because one of our cars got in an accident. And so everyone's going to the hospital. We're going right to the hospital. And it so happened that one of our girls who was resting in the back seat on impact was ejected from the car, and so she passed away.
Oh my God.
And I remember, I can see it sitting in the hospital, and all of my teammates were sobbing, and I couldn't cry. And I'm not sure I have the explanation to that, but just recognizing that this was definite, and also reflecting on the fact that I could have been her, you know, different circumstance, but and I get the second chance. And so going forward, it's like in her memory was part like live to inspire, something that either she said, her mom had said. And so it's like I wanted to internalize that and live that memory as well, because there are so many experiences, and I think a lot of us have had different ones of why we shouldn't or cannot take any day for granted. So had that one event, and on recovery, by senior year of college, I wasn't quite sure what I could do yet still cognitively, because sometimes it did feel like it took me longer to do certain tasks. And so I kept questioning, is this a ceiling that I have from the MRI documented injury to my brain? Or do I just need to learn differently? Like a lot of us have to go through different times during our careers of education. And at the end of college, I was like, okay, I've had enough validation of tests over and over and over again that I can do this. And I then also said, I have to pay this forward at the highest level that I possibly can. And it was, again, scary because there's a lot in application to medical school, and it's expensive. So, but at the same time, I had to say, similar to how I approach exercise and lifestyle, no excuses. I don't care how I feel.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Because you were given the opportunity. And so there we went. Yeah.
And obviously your performance academically was good enough to get into medical school. I mean, they don't just let you in if you have a bunch of C's.
That is correct.
So there's another demonstration, right? And as you were saying, you've already shown how, even from a young age, work ethic, that's kind of who you are. That's what you do. So in your mind, it's like, well, I'll work harder, or as you were alluding to, working smarter, or figuring a different avenue of approach, which is a huge sign of wisdom, because most of us think, I'm just going to keep banging my head against this wall, but eventually something else gives. So,
Right.
and then at that point, so the people that are around you, your family, your doctors, and they see you performing well, what were they thinking? Were they still very kind of cautious? Were they trying to pull you back, or were they sort of on board at that point? Or did you even pay attention? You're like, I don't really care what these people think anyway, because this is my life.
I think the people closest to me, who I'll say is my mom and my brother, knew that I was going to do whatever I felt I needed to do
Right.
with what had happened to me. And they trusted in me. My sophomore year in college, felt compelled to get back into the nonprofit sphere of things. And so I connected with an organization in Kenya called Flying Kites. And they house children who otherwise don't have a family. They become their own family. And they also provide some education and activities. And I wanted to do a parallel to what I had done in high school locally, abroad. And so we did a fundraiser locally, monetarily, and also of sports equipment and goods, shipped the sports equipment over.
Over to Kenya. Jeez.
And then afterwards, I did go, but that was tied into the fundraiser of a challenge of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And so I go back to your question about, did my doctor support my decisions? The clearance may not have gone through on that. However, this was another decision point of, are you going to, I think of surviving versus living. And again, I have a second chance, live it. And so I remember on the flights to Kenya and Tanzania, writing in my journal, I might die on the mountain. I recognize that. Because, again, we don't know what happened to me. I have a defibrillator in place that can shock my heart if it goes into abnormal rhythm. But also, this is an elevation my body, with or without defib, has been to before. And what that could do, even if it's a malfunction of the device, is a danger or a risk. But it was also another test of will I succumb to certain ceilings or just push? And the peak of Kilimanjaro is Uhuru, which means freedom. And, you know, you can't stay up there for long because of the oxygen levels.
Yeah.
But I remember walking up very slowly at a snail's pace, but you are huffing and puffing. And meanwhile, the guides are scattering by you. So that's a humbling experience. But at the top, there are just these glaciers. It's pristine. And I said, wow, you know, not so personally, that was incredibly meaningful to know that from now, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
We are going to help as many people as possible. We are going to compete and push it going forward. But also, it was a goal because we'd done this for an organization and for the kids, and for people that donated, believed in the cause, and also me personally, you know. So I wanted to give back to them in that way of saying, like, we did it.
So you're demonstrating not only to yourself, but to everyone else that this was something you could literally overcome. You could summit that mountain, as it were.
Something, I feel a tension when even you say that, like, it's not so much about me. I don't want it to be about me.
Of course.
I want people who maybe sitting in their couch in a dark place, see that post, hear the story, to say, gosh, maybe I can take a second look at how I'm living. And maybe the things that have internalized about what I can do aren't Bible, aren't the last word. Yeah. Because that revelation can truly change the rest of your life and transform. So that's my goal with these things.
Yeah, you're demonstrating it. You're emboldening others by emboldening your own actions when you were pushed. I have people that will come to me as well, and they'll talk about their adversity, and they'll say it's not as bad as what you've gone through or your story, but adversity is not a competition, guys.
Exactly.
So whatever that is for us, right? And there's millions of different ways. We're talking physically, but there's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. Mm-hmm. So understand that there are plenty of people that are going through hardship, but also understand that we can choose how we respond, because the way we conduct ourselves in the face of adversity is an indication of how we will do everything else. Mm-hmm. And so for you doing that, that's why I loved your story so much, and I love your mission. And now you're taking it to this other level as a doctor, as a medical professional, to show other people. You know, you're not just sitting behind a chair, you're not overweight, smoking a cigarette, telling them that they got to worry about their cholesterol. You're demonstrating it through your actions and your embodiment of that. I also would like to ask, though, because you're able to recognize it in people when they're holding back. For you, you're a hard charger. How do you balance that by taking your foot off the gas, or what do you do to recover, or do to keep yourself intact to be able to maintain this level of intensity and drive?
Well, I appreciate the point that you basically made of practicing what you preach, because I will not ask a patient to do something lifestyle-wise that I am not doing myself. I want you to lift weights. We're in the gym. I want you to eat predominantly whole foods. That's locked in. I'm measuring my asparagus and almonds and sweet potatoes and all of that, right? Want you to get sleep. I have this Whoop band, which helps with that.
Yeah.
And it also helps with understanding your deficit, and so that you can try to adjust that night to get what you truly need.
Right.
So that's something I pay very close attention to. Those are very important recovery tools. And looking at all of that as medicine, it's so much, Doc, what else, what other supplements, what other blah, blah, should I be taking? Not to discard those things entirely, but this has to be fundamental. And I will tell you, as I am training at a level and intensity consistently that I have never in my life, despite a lifetime of athletics,
Right.
this is so crucial. And I am paying, making sure that everything is aligned to sustain it, because it's just not possible otherwise. So recovery like that. I also like sauna for recovery and medical health benefits, cardiovascularly, reduces your risk of cardiac death, can help with mental health, and is a reset. So these are some of the things that I do.
No, I love that. Is there any meditative or intentional mindfulness practice that you have? I mean, I know that working out is very much a mindfulness practice, because you can't focus on anything else other than that weight when you're hitting it. But
I would say getting out for walks
yeah,
and in part doing some deep thinking during those times, or even allowing enough space and perspective where your mind's able to go other places. And I feel that's where you can be creative as well and think of new ideas. I see people in clinic that are struggling with a whole host of things, whether it's tremendous stress at work or recovering postpartum, which is a huge topic that I don't think, unless you're in it, is talked about
right.
nearly enough. You know, the benefit of having some dedicated time to your protected time
Yes.
for yourself to, if you can, like get outside, truly have your eyes redirect on something in nature, because it is hard to sometimes get out of it. And again, in our places that we've been in, I'm sure you have very specific techniques.
Yes.
If you sit at home.
Yeah, I love that you're doing the yin and the yang component, because we know plenty of people that are drivers, but they don't see that they're slowly ebbing the wrong direction, because it's sometimes slow and insidious. And then all of a sudden something happens, and then that's the wake-up
Right.
call. And if our only answer is more, we have to have that other gear. And so, like you're talking about, this intentional, cultivated empty space, it's everything. And like you said, going for a walk, that alone, your entire hormonal cascade changes. Getting outside, sun exposure, cardiovascular stuff, nothing in your ears so that you're aware. And then, like you said, the eye movement, right? Like that's directly from these therapies. So that's where we're mimicking what our ancestors have been doing for a long time. And when we can do that, that helps us get reconnected to that part of us, that innateness of us, that intelligence that we have, but sometimes we cover it up with technology or other things that we prioritize that maybe shouldn't be the priority.
Right. And listening to yourself as well, of those protected alone times, and then perhaps community times.
Yes.
So I know personally, when I'm training at 6 a.m., we got a timeline because we have to train and we have to be focused, because I want everything I possibly can get out of that session.
Yes.
And then I need to wash up and I need to transition physically and mentally
Yes.
into seeing my first patient. Probably 20 patients throughout the day until 5.
Goodness.
And so it's a lot of stimulation. But then perhaps in a space where you've recovered, you've had, the sauna, you've had your walk. Oh, let's take some time for these conversations too. It's maybe not today. It's not just a hi, hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good, type of thing. It's like, oh, how's the project been? For me, Ty, you typically gets to, how's the health? What joint is bothering you today, or what cardiac condition maybe you've experienced, or something that a lot of times people bring up things, which I love, that they just haven't brought to a doctor yet.
Yes.
For a number of reasons. And I totally understand the healthcare system has a lot of work to do, and we as doctors have a lot of work to do, especially in the listening department. But if we let even the little things linger for sometimes decades, it's not so little anymore, because we're subconsciously catering to something. This like, my shoulder, I just had this like little impingement, or, my knees, I had an injury when I was in college, type of thing. Or sometimes it's, well, I'm this age, so that's just what happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I want to be the person that maybe that intervention, that conversation one day, that's why the community and taking time for these things is important, that it's a rethinking of, oh, you know what? Maybe there is something I can do about that.
Yeah.
And then you address it, and gosh, quality of life has gone from like here, pretty good actually, you can tolerate it,
Right.
to wow, now a lot of different things that I didn't even think of have opened up for me.
Yeah. And like you said, if you didn't allow those things, you would just be, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Right.
And there are times we had to be task focused. I understand that.
Right.
But being able to see it in this huge existence is everything. And speaking of training, you're training with a trainer, but it's more of a living legend. Tell us.
That's an appropriate way to phrase
I
it.
would say, yeah.
When I started at Goals, I would see
Charles Glass. Yeah.
Charles Glass, and I think most people's experience is just, you watch him,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to learn indirectly from whatever he's doing, right?
That short? Okay, how was he
Exactly.
doing that? Yeah.
How did he correct this person?
Yeah.
And now I've been able to have that experience myself, and the expertise is so profound that all I want to do is register every second and tweak that I can.
Yes.
And, he will do exercises that you've never seen before. And it's not for the appearance of just doing something different,
Right.
which I think is the immense value and just amazement that I have. For example, with a row,
Yes.
we, at a seated row, at the end of the bench, he ended up putting a dumbbell so that I could sit on it. I'm 5'10", and so that allowed me going forward to get even more reach and extend, have this
In the lat.
lat come all the way and contract, and the level at which you're sitting
Yes.
really dials into the muscle. So it's an incredible reimagining of bodybuilding. And again, even as someone who's trained in different capacities, whether it's CrossFit or for soccer, basketball, different things, or lifting myself feeling confident in it, it's completely different.
Well, it's also about that trust. You were saying that, and that's what we're trying to find, right? When I would train martial arts or train people in martial arts or train a fighter before a fight or before I'd have a fight, you had to have 100% belief in this person. If there was even like a skew, then in the moment when you need it the most, you're going to falter.
Right.
And that's the difference between winning and losing, succeeding and failure.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. I thank you for saying that, because that's a huge game-changing part of it, because there's some, nearly every session, like near tears with the strain and the effort. And people would reasonably ask, should you, or should you be training this much, or this many times per week, or whatever it is? But he also makes sure it's protected and the technique is such that you can do these exercises safely and consistently in rotation. I've realized that's a privilege of having that expert watch you, that allows you to keep going. Because he's trained so many athletes and has been through all of it himself, he can analyze my individual ability and what may or may not be a breaking point for me or put me at risk. That's a very important part to it, because even when I'm saying to my patients, oh, ideally you have a personal trainer, I always say, but it needs to be someone that you are confident is listening to you and has evaluated you and pays attention to your sets, because I have heard from a number of people, I'm sure you have too, that it's too much. I feel it's too much, or whatever it is, that's just not just clearly not aligned with the person, that they're not looking forward to it or feel they might get injured.
Right.
So it's not only a matter of having the knowledge across the board, but being able to apply it to every specific individual.
Yeah, and again, that comes from, one, you respect this person. You also respect them enough not to hold back. Because on the outside, I can see what you can do more than you can, probably, right? If you're in it. And then if you trust me enough to do that, that gives me the ability to redouble my efforts. And now you and I are connected. Because if there is this point where I feel like you're not going to do it, even when I see you have more,
Right.
I'm going to hold back.
Positive snowball.
Exactly. And now I can't give you what you need.
Yeah.
And now you don't succeed. I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And now we're both unhappy. So that positive snowball into a unhappy marriage, so to speak, that relationship. And there have been so many times that I've pushed people, or I've been pushed by my instructors, where they see something I don't, and I don't want to do it, but I trust them enough to do it. Where if I have a client that's like at this place, the person we're most qualified to help is the person we used to be. So I can see where they're holding back. And if I'm pushing that leader and saying, no bullshit, what is this really doing? And they give in and they lean in, all of a sudden that's where that new level is. But we can't get there unless there's trust, respect, all these things.
Right. There's one clip on my Instagram that I love we captured, because it's a PR squat, and the pain. I mean, I think it's so evident that the person filming didn't know she was cheering me on in real time. But before that, as Charles is putting on more weight, when I felt it was already very heavy,
Yes.
he said, I got you
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And I said, okay. And then, made sure that was internalized.
Yes.
Because at the bottom of the squat, like, how the hell am I going to get up? The thing is that if you don't have that full trust, it's such a higher risk for injury, because you question and you might shift a little bit, and that's where truly it's dangerous. So getting up there, it felt like there were multiple sticking points, but
Three-quarter up.
it was so fully there, that feedback loop that you alluded to, that you said explicitly.
Yes.
I love the way you described that. Then I was able to complete the rep.
Yes. And that's where the satisfaction is. That's where you level up and you rack it and then you cry
Yep.
and then you get a drink of water or you
Crawl
fall
out of the
down.
gym. Yeah.
But yet the next day you're like, I love that.
Right.
So you're in Santa Monica.
Yes.
And what is your area of expertise specifically as an MD?
I am in family medicine, primary care. And so that means I see all ages, from few days old babies to all the way up. In my practice, it is predominantly adults. And even though it's not a considered specialty, like of residency per se, I would say that my specialty would be in nutrition and exercise and lifestyle, because traditional docs, we aren't trained so much in those things. And although it seems so basic, like, of course you know those things, you're a doctor. Not really. And I think most people actually get that because they haven't had the experience. But so I love my patients being in front of me, and, I ask them, I go through a full day, but I'll ask them what they eat. And a lot of the times their initial response is, well, I eat like a quick healthy breakfast, and then for lunch, eat blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. I want to know exactly what foods you're eating. And the reason I do is because I will actually give you feedback. Because what I've recognized is I think that people generalize because they don't think it would mean, they don't think they're going to get much on the other end. Right. And so we can go into those specifics, and I have a plan with how I work with people, and I love it.
Yeah. I can tell. I can tell that you have incredible enthusiasm for everything that you do, which, if nothing else, that should be an inspiration, right? There are so many things that people are doing half-heartedly because they shouldn't be doing them in the first place. So from your experience, what would be one piece of advice that you could give people that feel sort of stuck or they're not sure what direction to go?
My knee-jerk response was, come talk to me. I think in the same light, have a conversation with someone about why we're feeling stuck and perhaps where we want to be, if we've even visualized that. Because with some of my patients, I'll say in terms of mindset, who is it that you want to be in 6 months? I want you now to make decisions as if you were already that person, and over time you transform. I would start with getting outside of yourself.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective, because you're asking to detach from the outside. How many times do we see somebody that's like, well, this person needs to do that and that person needs to do this, and you say, why is it so easy for you to see it? And they can't, because you're on the outside. So we're not stuck with that cognitive distortion into what may or may not be true. Doctor, I've loved this conversation. You're an amazing person, amazing woman, amazing performer, amazing athlete. Where can we find out more about you? Would you have us go to Instagram? Where would you have us go to learn more about you and everything you do as a doctor and everything else you're doing as a competitor?
I would say that social media actually is the best place right now at my Instagram. My goal is to put out things that are highly relevant to how you can feel your best self. And that spans from the nitty-gritty of bodybuilding to anything under the sun that I see in primary care. And if, especially locally for people in terms of my clinic, they can look at my UCLA Santa Monica clinic.
Absolutely. And what is your handle on Instagram again?
dr.grace_Firestone.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being vulnerable, being open, and being here with me, being present, because we need more conversations and more people to hear stories like yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Actor Nonverbal.